Silence killing you?
Yes.
To talk to a friend
Everyone please
instead of get on
stand for the
Chromebook
pledge of
kills you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence. We have one announcement today. All library goods and Chromebooks are due in the media center
That's right.
today.
I know I have known all year long. Give it to me. Give it to me. Don't check them anymore. Give it to me. No checks, please. Leave them unlocked. Give it to me. Give it to me. Just leave them locked. Leave it where your notifications are just going to be on the screen. You give it to me. Give it to me. You're like, whoa, bro. Last day of the year. Why you being this teacher? Give it to me. Give it to me. Oh, I feel it buzzing already. Feel it buzzing already. You on top? Give it to me. Give it to me. Hey, Dan, lock it down. Lock it down. There you go. Give it to me. Give it to me. Choose the number. Give it to me. Right, just. Right, just. Oh, okay. I'm coming down this way. Blaze, let's see it. Let's have it. I feel it buzzing already. All these things that assault your brain on an hourly basis. That's right. Oh, it's getting heavy. Put it on drop. Put it on drop. There you go. Solly, Abigail, yeah, you know, I'm coming. Oh, there's a buzz. It's buzzing. All these things that go up in your pocket all the time. There it is. There it is. The other classes make you do this at the beginning of the hour?
Oh, God. Yeah, Miss English.
Good.
Well, as soon as you walk in. Oh, yeah, Miss Ford.
Hey, hey, don't do it. Give it to me. Give it to me. Come on. You get that last snap in. You getting that last snap in. I know that you are.
Mr. Mother, you know what she just said?
There you go. 20. All right, hey, I'm gonna do the same. I'm gonna do the same. Gently lay this down right here. Gently. You guys are like, that's my whole life right now.
I just buy no.
Look, me too. I'm on lock. I already got like 7 notifications I haven't even checked. I'm going 22. Y'all feeling 22? I don't know about you, but I bet you wanted to. All right. What should we talk about today? What should we talk about today? You guys like, it's Wednesday of test week. What do you mean? What are we talking about today? I got a song for you.
Oh, Lord.
Ready for it?
No.
Make sure that volume's up. Make sure that volume's all the way up.
This is Bible, trust me.
Volume is all the way up.
Never take it seriously.
I hate you.
Ooh, I like this. Oh, but
That's a dude, bro.
I like this song. I'm about to sing it. My girl.
Lord help him.
Never mind.
Stop.
What do you say? That man crying. It's okay, bro. Next round.
That's gonna be CJ. That's gonna be CJ.
Look how you look at me.
Not cry, singing about how much you think of.
All right, that was Kip from the Great American Classic 2003's Napoleon Dynamite. What is it that Kip loves? What does he say?
Technology.
He loves technology, and guess what? So do you. But more than just loving technology, more than it being like something you're obsessed with, which you certainly are, we are going to talk about the influence that technology has had on the world. I'm trying to get this put up on my side screen. The technology influence has had on the world across time and history. So a little bit of a ha-ha to get us started. Kiffy loves technology, but not as much as you see. But I still love technology, and so do you. So we're going to talk about the morphing of technology, and especially communication technology across time and history. And we're going to have a little fun along the way. You got one page in front of you. It's not even a notes page, so just hang with me. And I think this will be a very nice closeout to our Unit 5 and really to our class as a whole. So technology and its influence, and specifically communication technology. Tell me how it has advanced across time. Take it back as far as you could possibly think. How do people communicate with each other?
They used to write on the walls.
Okay, very original, man. Just simple scratchings on the side of the wall because they didn't even have what? Didn't even have paper, so we have to use the earth to be. I like that. So that's definitely as far back as it goes. CJ? Morse code is in there. What is the Morse code related to? You know the machine name? Everybody, I'll help you out. It's called the telegraph. So CJ started it just right with the telegraph. And in fact, what you have in front of you is Morse code. I'm going to elaborate here in just a second as well. So the telegraph is what starts kind of sent messages, wired communication. What do you think? What would be the next step?
Telegram.
Telegraph. No, telegraph, telegram are the same thing.
What about the pagers?
Okay, that's a step farther. Telegraph leads to the telephone. Telegraph, telephone. Then what would be the next type of communication?
Computer.
Not quite there. We got stuff in the middle.
Wireless.
Telegraph, telephone.
The one that hang on the wall.
Next up is the radio. Okay, you guys are skipping some steps here. I get it. It's what's normal to you. You guys are in this society where we have this instant communication. It's kind of the whole point of our class today. Telegraph, telephone, radio. Now coming a little bit closer to your favorite kind of communications. What would be next?
Television.
Television. Yeah. So these three right here are all related to what? Hearing a message. Television. Now what can I do? I can see the messenger. So all of a sudden, the way that person looks and smiles, their eyes, I can see the messenger. So telegraph, telephone, radio, television. Now we're stepping into your favorite technologies. What will come next? I'm going to go with the internet. Okay, see, Isaac said computer. I'm going to go with the internet. And at first, the internet was related to how did it spread its messages? What did it have to have in order to be connected?
A wire.
Right. Early internet required being wired in. Now it's still around the world, and that is revolutionary, but it required a wire. So then the next step of interneting is what? Wireless, or we know it as Wi-Fi, right? Plenty of jokes in the world today about how Wi-Fi is life. You guys walk into a business, you want to know if they have Wi-Fi so you can connect to it and get some free streaming and all that kind of stuff. So the wired internet to Wi-Fi, and from all of this, we get, you guys have been saying cell phones and pagers, right? That's inside of this portion of technology. And what are your favorite things on that device that you hold in your hand? What are your favorite little things that you do?
Social media.
Social media, right? Apps of all varieties, but specifically social media. So this is the stretch of technology. Going from the telegraph all the way to social media kind of brings us into the present day. And then I will give you kind of that grand question mark, what's next? And what is beyond? This is what we're going to talk about today. This would be the one thing I want you to write down. So I gave you this. Go ahead and go to the back side here. Just write this stretch right here. From telegraph to social media. You don't have to write and beyond. I want you to just keep in mind the big, the big 7 things we're going to talk about today. And it's more of an engaging class than a notes-taking class, so don't worry about which words should I write down. Am I following the notes well? We're just going to be engaging with each other. I just want you to have these 7 things written down. The stretch of technology from the telegraph to social media. Telepistols are back there. Don't step on the phones. Don't step on the phones. Sorry, it's the end of the year, and I'm out of my regular pencils. I need to get another supply run. Real simple right now, guys. You see 7 words, and that way it's going to be able to keep this page. I knew that wouldn't move. How did it feel, that opening screen that said talk to a friend? Were you guys capable of that?
Nope.
A little bit awkward? I know some of you love coming in here for a Chromebook, or, I wasn't controlling your phones at that point, but man, if I locked down your phone, some of you would have like, I don't know what to do with my hands. I don't know how to act because I don't have my device right now. That was the point of it. Logan, I know you got a little grumpy at me because I had the Chromebooks locked. That was the point of it. Try to make you feel life before technology when we had to talk to each other. Isn't that crazy? All right, you almost done with these 7?
No.
At least you got a neighbor next to you that can help you out.
Hold on. I got it.
Come on, Max, just write them down. You don't have your color coordinated stuffs. All right, I'm about to move on. And now I didn't say it in this stretch right here. You guys said it kind of well when you talk about cave writings. Even before the telegraph, which is wired communication, messages could travel only as fast as a horse could ride. And in fact, there was a very organized system in the United States called the Pony Express. Let's say something happens in Washington, D.C., obviously the seat of government, the Capitol, the president, the Congress, all that. Something happens in Washington, D.C., well, how does that message get down to Texas? How does that message get all the way to California, where we had settlers at the time? Say it again? Horseback. Yeah, so as fast as a horse could ride, though, how fast can a message go from Washington, D.C. to California?
3 days.
Days for sure. They actually had a very organized system where you see the want ad here. This is real. The want ad was for young men to come and join the Pony Express. They wanted to be young, fit, strong, tough, don't have to stay at home and have all your creature comforts. You're okay breaking away from mama. You want to go on an adventure. We need you to join the Pony Express. Pony Express actually was a system where they had horses staged across the country. Now, Abigail, you're a horse gal. About how long can a horse ride at a gallop before it's truly exhausted?
I'd say about an hour.
About an hour? Okay. And if you push the horse past that, what's it going to do?
It's going to stop.
It's going to stop or lay down, or if you truly push it past it, it may well die, right? If you push it past its own limit. So the Pony Express was an organized series of horses all the way across the country where these young men would get on one horse, ride the maximum distance, whatever that was, let's say it's an hour, and he, just like the picture demonstrates here, hop onto another horse. He would do this as far as he needed to go to deliver his message. So he would give that news in every new town. Let's say he starts in Washington, D.C., just like I said. Well, he delivered that message to Virginia, and then the Carolinas, and then Georgia. Then he'd come on over to Louisiana. He'd get into Texas. He'd ride all the way to California. So that news would spread as fast as the horses could ride. Really interesting example for you to think about when President Lincoln was assassinated in Washington, D.C. Happened on April 14th. Places in Georgia didn't get that message, the first newspaper reports in Georgia, until April 21st, a whole week later. The president had been dead for a week, but the fastest the news could travel was as fast as a horse could ride. These days, you're like, they didn't tweet it out, they just didn't send that message out, and everybody knew. We got to understand perspective. So this is where we're coming from, but our first real piece of technology that we're going to talk about is the telegraph. Telegraph was invented in 1844. It was invented by a man named Samuel Morse. From Samuel Morse, now we get the device itself, but we also get another piece that is related to the telegraph. And CJ, what is that? Morse code. So this code, have you heard that phrase before? You heard it? Do you understand what it means, or you're just like, yeah, I've kind of heard that phrase before? Morse code is what you have in front of you right here. I'm going to borrow Kairos. It is this method of dots and dashes being associated with each letter. And from the dots and the dashes, a trained telegraph operator could weave together a message pretty rapidly and understand what the message coming across the wire was. Now, this message could travel as far as the wire was strung. However, if a wire got broken or cut in the middle for any reason, let's say a dog chewed through it, train ran over it, whatever the case may be, all of a sudden that line is broken. Obviously, they'd have to go and repair it. So it was not a flawless system. It's certainly not the Wi-Fi you guys are used to today. but it could go as far as a wire would stretch. Now the machine itself is the picture in the top left here. It was literally just a series of taps. The wires connected to the metal machine, tap, 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 tap. That those taps will go across the wire to someone on the other end, 1 mile away, 10 miles away, 100 miles away. Sometimes they had to relay the message from station to station to station. And in a time period much quicker than the horse could ride, these messages could be communicated. So the horse, the pace of the horse has now become obsolete because we have the pace of the wire. But thinking through this, here's an early telegraph operator. So this gal, she's on the other end of the wire. She's listening for the taps and the dashes, the dots and the dashes. She's writing down what she is receiving through the wire. And then hopefully, right, she's received the correct message and she'll be able to pass that message on to whomever it is. Presidents could communicate like this. Businesses could communicate like this. Regular people could communicate like this. So greatly increase the speed at which messages could be transmitted. We'll do one little tiny activity here, and I want you to just choose a partner. Okay, so someone next to you, it could be 2s or 3s, and I want you to tap out a message to that partner. I'll give you an example. I'm going to go with hi. Okay, just H and I. They're right next to each other. Hi, you can see, or H is 4 dots. I is 2 dots. So I might have to choose another word to give you an example of a dash. Here's how hi would sound. 1, 2, 3, 4, H. 1, 2 is I. A trained telegraph operator would get that. I'm going to do another word. Let's go with, I'll just do a day, D-A-N-Y. Okay, I was going to do David, but I'll just go D-A-N-Y. You need to know what a dash sounds like. Now, a dot, I think we relatively understand that it's just that rapid sequence of a dot. Here's what a dash sounds like. So D is dash, dot, dot. Dash, dot, dot. A little bit of a pause between, so I'll do it without talking. Dash, dot, dot is a D. Here's an A. And then a Y. Dash, dash, dot, dash, dash. Whew, it's a little complicated, doesn't it? So I want you to choose a partner and try to tap out a message of your choosing. A message of your choosing. It could be your name. It could be Go Raiders. It could be the word Wednesday, whatever. But try to communicate to each other using the Morse code. So embrace the lesson here. Have a little fun with it. Try to be like our old-time ancestors who communicated with dots and dashes. Dots and dashes.
I'm so sorry.
Alright, silence for the picture. Y'all create a message.
The receiver may want to kind of record. The receiver may need to be looking at their page in order to see what it is. Who are you sending a message to? Who are you sending a message to? Bryce and CJ, you guys together? Kimberly, why don't you turn around and shake hands with them? It's okay, you wait for me to trio.
Go to the signal. E. L. Hello.
So, in the way
You still in?
About 1 more minute here. I love that you guys are struggling through it. Struggles are good. Who got a message? Who successfully received a message? Even a short word. What did you get? Hello. You got hello? You received that message? Kyra, did you receive a message? Not sure? What were you trying to send? You trying to send the hi? Yeah, that's okay. Hi is kind of on the easy side. It's all just dog.
Wow, nobody said you could sway them down.
All right, anybody else successfully received a message? Jackie, what message did you receive? Cheer. Okay. And what did you receive?
I sent, I love you.
Okay, you guys send each other's names. And like, be honest, you really received the message and were able to catch it. Now, some of y'all ask questions along the way. What exactly does a dash sound like? How long do you have to hold a dash? Or some of you were like, I can't catch it, it's too fast. Several takes out of this tiny little activity. It takes a trained ear to actually catch the dots and the dashes. It could take a long time to learn this brand new language, right? You learned your ABCs as a child. This is a whole other way to think about the ABCs. But if you could catch this system, you could transmit on the telegraph and you could send messages very far. Another way that Morse code could be used, hey, come back to me now. Another way Morse code could be used, it doesn't just have to be on the telegraph. It could also be, with flashing lights. So a lot of times ships at sea can communicate with each other with flashing lights. And for example, I'm gonna give you a message right here with my flashing light. So try to catch. Every time the light flickers, a short flicker will be a dot, a long flicker will be a dash. Okay, you ready?
What?
Look at your page. Look at your page. Try to catch it.
Is it you? Wait, hold on, do it again.
CJ, what'd you get out of that?
SOS.
Ah, look at the S. What's an S?
3 dots.
3 dots. What's an O?
3 dashes.
Oh, so here's a version of the longer dashes, right? You can see it's kind of just very incrementally longer, and then I go back to the S. So SOS actually means save our ship. SOS, save our ship. And that is very frequently a Morse code sending that may happen at sea if a ship is in distress. So you can see it doesn't just have to be the machine, it can also be lights. Now I wanna round out Morse code by doing one more thing. I'm not gonna do the taps, I am gonna do the light, and I want you to try to catch my message, okay? So,
I got you.
yeah, I'm communicating to all of you right now. And I did a SOS, so you can see the difference between a dot, that's a quick flick, and then a dash, that's a little bit of a longer hold, okay? So pay attention to your page. I'm only going to do it once. Let's see if you can get my message.
You're doing it too fast.
Oh, I already know it. You got a W in there, I know that. But I'm done.
What'd I say?
I love
you. Say it again, Knox.
I love you.
1, that's correct. I'm impressed.
I told him
That's
that.
LeBron. 2, how much does that feel like an I love you? If that was coming through the wire or the light, how much does that feel like an I love you? So my point here now is the telegraph is a pretty impersonal form of communication.
No emotion.
Very hard, impossible to convey emotion. You might be able to send the word urgent, right, to let someone know that it's an urgent message, but that didn't much feel like an I love you, even though that's the words that I sent. So very early communication, only through the wire, only through dots and dashes, impersonal communication. You can see that there is a lot of opportunity for miscommunication. What if someone didn't catch the right message or they misspelled the word and it changes the meaning of the message? So while it's good that our messages can be sent faster, there's still plenty of complications that could arise. Abraham Lincoln was known to use the telegraph during the Civil War. Since it was a technology that came about in 1844, that is about 20 years before the Civil War. So in the time of the Civil War, this was a version of communication. And Abraham Lincoln, this is a picture of him here, would actually go to the Washington, D.C. telegraph office, and really just a lot of his days were sitting there waiting for messages to come from the battlefront. And he would communicate with his commanders in this fashion as well. So goes to show he's one of the first presidents who's able to communicate more rapidly with his military commanders. And we will talk about this extensively in U.S. history. Moving on to the telephone. Telephone invented in 1876. So 1844, 1876, that's what, 32 years. of advancement into the new technology. Telephone was invented by Alexander Graham Bell.
I know.
And a lot of times, bell kind of sounds like a telephone bell that rings. There's a lot of telephone companies named Bell, Southwestern Bell, Southeastern Bell, the
Southern
Bell
Bell.
Company, Southern Bell. So I know Bell, we usually kind of think that because the phone rings and it's a bell, actually named after the inventor, Alexander Graham Bell. Here is the picture. This is an actual photograph. Okay, so we're also in the time where technology gives us photographs. This is Alexander Graham Bell making the very first telephone call of all time. He called his assistant, who was just one room over. So it wasn't some super long telephone call. He called his assistant, who was just one room over. But his assistant received the message effectively, and instead of hearing dots and dashes, what did he hear?
Voice.
A voice. That's right. This is what changes. This is why it's revolutionary, because now we can communicate instantly, voice to voice. Now we're still beholden to the wire. If the wire gets cut or broken, then your line of communication is cut off. But now we can communicate across long distances with our voices. And now that message of I love you can sound a whole lot different because you can receive the message from the sender in their voice with their emotion. So obviously technology or the telephone is going to change the world in a lot of ways. And even as the technology advances into a cell phone, we are still kind of at the same point of being able to talk with our voices. It is at the root of it. It is the same technology as the early telephone. The telephone has a lot of military applications as well. We looked at World War I field phones. This is, I think this is the Vietnam era, but it's still a field telephone. So just like Abraham Lincoln used the telegraph for the military reasons, obviously the military is going to be able to use the telephone for the same thing. This is a progression of the telephone across time. So top left, 1876, that's that first phone. Bottom right, 1976. So it's really showing 100 years of the telephone. That 1976 one probably still looks like a dinosaur to you, even to me, to be honest, because the phone has continued to grow even much more than that. Which one stands out to you as like the most funny looking? The very top left? Abigail? Yeah. So 1913. Let me try to get there. Where we at? 19. This one? That one right there?
The one beside that one.
What is one similarity? What is one similarity in all the telephones? What is a piece that it has to have?
The wire.
Wire. Okay. Yeah.
So
The ear thing.
Okay, ear and mouth, right? There's always an ear cup, and then there's always a mouth funnel. So no matter what the shape of it is, you're hearing and you're speaking. Obviously, this is the heart of the telephone. A couple more progressions here, and this one takes us a little bit more into the currents. Did you know that the first car phone was the year I was born, 1988? Again, probably looks like a dinosaur to you. Looks like something out of Back to the Future. And then, of course, you're very familiar with the iPhone or the Galaxy, whichever you use. But did you know before that, early cell phones, you can only play like one game on it, Snake. You could use the button. You had to send a text message. If you wanted to hit the letter H, you had to hit the 5 like 3 times to get to the H. Then you had to move over to the next letter, because each number was associated with a particular letter. But it wasn't like a keyboard. You ever seen the phone that actually has letters on the numbers? Yeah, they're like, I'm not even sure what he's talking about, right? Your papa's got one?
Yeah,
All
my papa got one.
right. And then I like this image because it shows a size difference, right, from early telephones to what we know today. Very interesting is that cell phones got smaller before they returned to a little bit larger, right? Phones got smaller to the point that we were like, this is too small. I need my phone to be bigger again. And then cell phones started to grow again. It also connects to a screen when we realized we could start streaming movies on phones or just videos of any sort. So cell phones got super tiny until the point that we wanted them to be larger again. And again, just kind of the cycle of the telephone through time. So we have hit the point of our bathroom break. When we come back, we'll talk about the radio. I'm going to protect your cell phones right here. Don't walk past them. Don't walk on them.
So we can't make up
What is no? What is no? Oh,
I'll give it credit.
it's going to be a short bathroom break. Thea's addicted. She can't eat.
Wow.
It's going to be a short bathroom break today. You will get your cell phones back, I assure you.
This Lawson is going, man, I think I had all this.
I read something one time that cell phones getting smaller before they got larger again. It was the advent of realizing you could watch things on them.
Literally, my grandmother showed us from that point forward. Yeah. I was like, man, that's
Some classes do. Y'all be dying. You want to know what an addiction is? You're addicted. Look at the phone. What?
You need to run that by Mr. McGuire.
I had one in Afghanistan. Didn't I tell you that?
Yeah, but you need to do it.
Well, I had to
Oh,
cut it
take it
off
off,
every time I go to the drill.
Oh, you got
With because I can't have it at drill. I had it in Afghanistan because it's a cultural thing. We were allowed to have the facial hair because in Afghanistan they have beards, so we wanted to connect to their culture. But traditionally, you got to be clean shaved and no shave. All right, some of y'all are more addicted than you realize. Since you couldn't even take it to the bathroom. Let's talk about radio now. Now, what is your interaction with radio? When do you listen to the radio?
In the car.
In the car, right? Our reactor, our connection to the radio today is usually in the car, in the vehicle. But early on, as radio was developed, it was their one form of communication in the household. It's not communication, but also entertainment in the household. Radio wave technology was started to be developed in 1886, and then a commercially packaged radio that could go into the home didn't come about till 1899, 1900. So that's why I give that a bracket of years. There's the development of the technology, and then there's putting it in the home for commercial use. That was about the 1900s. Here is an early radio. It looks a little bit more complicated than your car radio, doesn't it? Right? Many pieces and moving wires and connectivity. So this is an early radio. This is the earliest of radios. And you can see that at that point, we're able to send the human voice across wires. And that is what is notable about that. Here is how the radio changed the face of the world. Now, politicians, celebrities, advertisements can come into your home. Does anybody recognize who's on the who's that on screen now?
No.
Yes, you do. He said it.
President.
President, yeah, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He was president during what major world event?
World War II.
World War II, and in particular, No. What big event drew America into war? Pearl Harbor. Yeah, he's president during, so you guys said it with World War II. I was trying to draw one more step out here. He's president during Pearl Harbor. All those things set up in front of him are radio receivers, microphones, and you can see that they're labeled with each television station, or I shouldn't say television station, they're labeled with each news agency that they're associated with. CBS and NBC, probably the two that you would still recognize from today. President Roosevelt changed the face of the presidency because how he used radio. Even before Pearl Harbor, he would come into the home with what was known as a fireside chat. These are 3 pictures of families gathered around the family radio, listening to whatever was on it. Now, there were entertaining shows. They were just like you guys would watch a television show. There were shows that were all related to voice, background sound effects. But if you wanted to have it, a lot of times there are Western shows, and you might hear a horse neighing or galloping, and the sound effects that come from that. Families would gather on the radio for entertainment purposes. In these radio shows, there would be advertisements. So now we're able to, if you're a business and you have a product that you want to advertise, you can advertise it for as far as the radio can send its message. And that leads to a national consumption of certain products. Before this, a lot of things were regional. You could only go as far as Georgia. You could only go as far as the Southeast. Well, now with radio, if you're selling a washing machine and you are Maytag, that's a company, you can put your advertisement on the radio, it can spread all across the country. And then, so that is entertainment, that is advertisement, but most notably was the way that the president would use it to come into people's homes and share what's going on in the country. It wasn't always like mega days like Pearl Harbor. Okay, it wasn't always major world events where he had to come in and tell what happened from in Hawaii. A lot of times he just came into the home and just talked. People started to see him as their friend. President Roosevelt, he's on the radio again tonight. Let's hear what he has to say. And he would speak in a very calm and soothing manner. He was coming into your home. You were just sitting around the fireplace together, just chatting it up, called fireside chats. So that is how President Roosevelt really changed the use of technology and changed the office of the president as well. People began to trust him. They saw him as their friend, like I said, and they actually looked forward to hearing him. These days, kind of have a lot of times we have contempt for the office of the president, or we make fun of the president. That was not the case with Roosevelt. He was someone that people saw as their friend, and they wanted to hear what he had to say. This actually comes from, I believe, the National World War II Museum, and it shows a man kind of huddled around his radio, listening to President Roosevelt's fireside chats. Just his daily update, how's it going? Not always big events like a war, but it could just be the daily events as well. So, have you ever gathered around your radio just to hear what was to be said? No, because what do you guys flock to? Probably the television, or this generation, you huddle around your phone. I know even at me growing up as well, I didn't have to rely exclusively on the radio. We had television, but occasionally, if I wanted to catch a sports game that maybe wasn't on television, I would huddle around the radio. Or if we're driving, we're on a long drive, and we didn't have the Wi-Fi, because that wasn't a part of my childhood, we would listen to whatever was on the radio. So my life grew up around a radio a little bit more than yours. Of course, we continue to advance into, now let's talk television. Television was invented in 1927. That does not mean it was a household item immediately, right? That soon. So long growth of television, but I got the year on there, is invented in 1927. We're talking about the real impact to television, and this is kind of a touch from U.S. history. The very first ever presidential debates that were put on TV were in 1960. So invented in 1927, but it took quite a while for it to become mainstream. And the first ever presidential debate that was televised was in 1960. Now, Aiden, it feels like you know a couple things about the 1960 presidential debates. What do you know about?
It was against Nixon.
Excellent. Hey, this guy knows a couple things. So the debate was between Richard Nixon on the right and John F. Kennedy on the left. Think about this. Previously, presidential debates were put onto the radio. And if you're on the radio, what matters about your communication style? How you sound. But if you put a debate on television, all of a sudden,
You
what
lose,
matters?
you lose.
How you look is exactly right. At these presidential debates, a series of them, Nixon was seen as looking old, tired, and haggard. Kennedy, on the other hand, was seen as sun-bronzed, fit, healthy, vibrant, and good-looking. Some people say Nixon won the debate by what he said. But if you watched it on TV, nobody thought Nixon won. They thought he got wiped across the floor with that real good-looking man, John F. Kennedy. I don't even care what he had to say. He looked so good, I'm voting for him. I'm being a little sarcastic here, right? But that is how a lot of people thought. They did not care so much about what he had to say. They just thought that he looked better. So, again, probably pretty normal to you guys today. If you see someone on television, you're immediately judging their appearance. Your parents, you're not voters yet, but you will be someday. We are all greatly impacted by how someone looks. So television changed the world because it put an emphasis on appearances instead of just the content of what someone said or what they were writing or what they believed, especially from a politician perspective. So this leads to the rise of celebrity culture, and the better you look on television, the more people are going to like you, and the more money you can make, all that kind of stuff. So obviously television changed a lot of things in our world. Kennedy and Nixon, of course, aren't the only presidents to use television. Ronald Reagan was known for using television a lot. He would actually bring a television camera into the Oval Office. He would use charts, just like you see there. He's pointing at a chart and explain things to the American people. So it's easier to explain it with a picture than it is to explain it with just your voice. So that change, television changes that as well. And then another thing, crossover into U.S. history. All right, help me out. I'm crossing you into U.S. history. Get ready for next year. The Vietnam War was known as a television war. Why is the Vietnam War known as a television war? One of the first wars where on a nightly basis, images from the battlefield could be shown on your screen. World War II, it took a long time for video footage to make it back to the States. Then they'd splice it, and then a lot of times they actually put it in a movie theater, not even on the nightly news. Well, so Aiden is noticing. Those are some grisly images, and it's not bloody or gutty, but it is some grisly images on the screen. And the family right there. That guy's in a suit and tie, or at least in a shirt and tie. He probably does an office job, right? He just came from doing paperwork all day long, but he can come home to his living room, turn on the screen, and see what's happening in Vietnam. And with what you know about the Vietnam War, was it a popular war? No, it was not. We just talked about that, right? We just talked about that. So Vietnam being able to be shown on the screen, that also influenced what people thought about it. And of course, that is television influencing what people thought about it.
Was all the footage black and white?
So there is I should look up the year. There's a black and white was easier to create. Color took a little bit longer, and at some point, a black and white television was cheaper than a color TV. These days, of course, there's no black and white TVs. We've come into the era of all of them being color. But to your question, it's kind of a slow progression, black and white into color. It also mattered how it was filmed. Certain film was only black and white, but some film was capable of being color. So I don't know about this one in particular. Obviously, it looks black and white, but color was on the rise. It didn't happen immediately.
Did you live in that black